This is the Happy Families podcast with Dr Justin Coulson. We're Luke and Susie, and this is the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Sometimes you can feel like, what is it? You talk and you talk and you talk and there's a blank look on their face. Mm-hmm. Or they're going in the completely opposite direction, like you've said nothing.
Apparently getting kids to really listen, there's a trick to it. Dr Justin Coulson, you have some answers on this. How do we get our kids to really listen?
This is the number one question I get from parents.
Is it really?
All the time. And because parents are just kind of going, I talk till I'm blue in the face. I say it again and again and again, and they don't listen. And then I find myself shouting, and I don't like shouting. No one wants to shout because it makes, shouting, all the neighbours can hear your dysfunction.
That's the main reason why we don't like shouting, is because our neighbours know how frail we are.
Yeah, that's right. Not to say you're dysfunctional if you yell, but move on.
So basically, this is my number one go-to when it comes to the kids not listening. Speak softer. Because, when somebody starts talking really loud at you, when they start yelling, what's your initial impulse?
Run in the opposite direction.
Personally, swing.
Well, so fight or flight. We've got both of them right there.
Yeah.
We just want to get away from it. It's like, you're in my space, you're intruding, you're upsetting me. And our kids are exactly the same. They're just like, who is this big, horrible person that's making all of this noise? And so when we get louder, I promise you, your children are not deaf. Yeah. And if you're not sure, and unless they actually have a genuine physical ailment that leads to them not being able to hear, if you're not sure, just stand at the doorway to whatever room they're in and say, in a nice quiet voice, "Who wants ice cream?"
I used to say chocolate cake.
We have done that.
Yeah.
We have done that.
And their ears prick up and their eyebrows raise and their eyes go wide and they're like, "Me?" And you're like, "Great, so you're not deaf. Let's go and clean the room." What we want to do is we speak softer. And you'll find that the softer somebody speaks, the more closely everybody listens. Because that's what we do. We want to hear what we're missing out on. So that's number one. Number two, I think that we've got to consider our timing. Now, let's face it, we can be pretty rude when it comes to wanting things done. We just say, "Kids, do it now," and it doesn't matter what they're doing. And what they're doing might not be important to us.
Yeah.
But often it's deeply important to them, even if they're just playing. I mean, play is the most important thing they can be doing. And so if we ask them to do something and they're right in the middle of something that matters to them, I think it's worth saying, "I can see that this is important to you. Why don't you finish the page? Why don't you wait until, the show's over? Wait till you finish that level if you can't pause the game. But within the next 10 minutes, I really want it done." Yeah. You're speaking really softly, really civilly, and you're just respecting. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's got to be done now, but not usually. And I've got another tip that I think is just an absolute cracker. It's called the gentle reminder.
It's the Happy Families podcast with Luke and Susie, Dr Justin Coulson, talking about how to get our children to really listen. That brand new technique up next.
Family life is pretty tough going sometimes. Most days are a struggle between strong-willed children and frazzled parents. And while no parent wakes up in the morning saying, "Today's the day I'm going to ruin everyone's lives," it sometimes feels like that by the end of the day. 21 Days to a Happier Family is the #1 parenting book by Dr Justin Coulson for parents who want their kids to be better, themselves to be calmer, and their family to be happier. Now the book is also available as an online video course. In the program you'll find specific strategies to help you be at your best, evidence-based ideas to strengthen your relationship with your children, research-proven practices to improve understanding between you and your child, discipline strategies that work because they're about discipline and not punishment, and more tips to make your family happier. And as a special offer only for podcast listeners, use the code PODCAST at checkout for a massive $50 saving. 21 Days to a Happier Family, the online video course by Dr Justin Coulson. Get it now from happyfamilies.com.au.
It's the Happy Families podcast with Luke and Susie, Dr Justin Coulson, and we're talking about how to get our children to really listen. And Justin, you were just saying you have a cracker of a technique for us called the gentle reminder.
And this is what I do when my kids are not listening. I walk over to them and in a very soft voice, I call them by name. So I might say, "Luke." Or I might say, "Susie."
I was going to say, don't pick on me.
No. Well, that's not my children's name, so my children will look at me very strangely if I do that. But I'll actually grab their hand gently, and I'll hold one hand in my two. So I'm sort of cradling their hand in my hands, and I'll say, "Ella, or Abby or whoever it is, and I'll look them in the eyes, and then I'll just use one or two words for what I'm after. I'll say the table, or your bag, or the towels, or your shoes. You can see I've done this more than once, right?
Yeah.
And what it does is it gives the kids credit for having a brain. They've got to think, hang on, what is it about the table? Or what is it about the towel? Oh, that's right, we don't leave towels on the floor. I must have left a towel on the floor. And I'm not getting cranky about it. I'm just expecting them to do it. I've touched them. I've looked in their eyes. I've spoken softly. I know I've got their attention and they've heard me. They're listening. And then I just wait. Literally, I just stand there holding their little hand, smiling at them like an absolute goober. and they just stare at me until they go, oh, sorry, Dad. And off they go.
Yeah. Look at that. You know what? Of all of those, the one I get wrong the most.
What's that?
Is the number 2. And I realised this the other day, actually using a Dr. Justin Coulson tip of the song for brushing your teeth. And
yes.
we play a song. And it was at the time where it was time to brush the teeth, and they were all in different rooms. So I thought, great, loudspeaker, put the song on, everyone's going to come hurting. And 2 of them didn't. And I sent their brother to go, just make sure that they can hear the song. And they did, and they decided not to come. The only time ever they didn't come. And they were in the middle of colouring in a picture. And what, in hindsight, now, I was upset with them and they got into trouble because they knew that song was on, they needed to respond. And their brother reminded them and they didn't respond. But in hindsight, I looked at it and went, I was actually kind of rude that I didn't check whether they were in a position. I was just demanding with no real... I could have waited 3 minutes, but I didn't. And it was just as you say that there,
it's all about our agenda, isn't it? And as parents, we forget that other people, even little people, have actually got their own agenda and their own preferences as well. Yeah. And I'm not suggesting by any stretch that the kids should have rule of the roost or that they're supposed to, everything's got to be on their timetable. But it's just considerate to look at what they're doing and think, can I give them another couple of minutes? If I give them a warning now,
because that was the thing. When I look at it, they go, there was no reason why it had to be now and not in 3 minutes' time. Like, it didn't matter. There was enough space between then and bedtime. Now, if we had to leave the house and we were running late for something and it's now and immediate and, fine, but there wasn't. It was just because I wanted it done.
Yeah.
And so... Now I have to be considerate of them
Yeah, that's
too.
right. Some great tips there from Dr. Justin Coulson as we've talked about getting kids to really listen. Thank you so much for your time.
Always a pleasure. Love it.
Don't forget, Luke, if you want some more information, there's books, there's podcasts, there's resources galore. They're all at happyfamilies.com.au.
Or, of course, to be inspired in person, you can find out how you can have Justin speak at your school or organisation. You can check out justincoulson.com.